It's ridiculous. I did a live before for you guys, and I did it on a different page. And then I tried to download it to put it on this page, and it didn't work. So this is take two. Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday night. I wanted to talk to you tonight about challenges about getting your first position because I've been noticing on a lot of groups that I'm a member of, people will say, "Hey, Desmond, thank you. No problem. Thank you, friend." Oh, gosh. Anyway, um, people will say, "I was the runner up again. I don't know why I was the runner up," or there's always an internal candidate, or they said I did a great job, but I didn't get chosen. So I feel you, and I was there. So I wanted to share what happened with me and my leadership journey with you tonight to give you some hope and let you know that it will happen for you. So I started teaching at 20. I was a social studies teacher, and I quickly got my master's and then started studying for my doctorate in administration and supervision. So when I was 25 or 26, I started applying for some of those positions that were open in the districts in which I worked. And I worked in a fairly large district. The middle school in which I worked had over 2,000 students, and I think it was at least 4 assistant principals. And then there were high schools and elementary schools, and so there were a lot of opportunities actually. But what I found was when I started applying, I wasn't getting the positions. And I couldn't understand it, right? Because, okay, if it was my resume, I wouldn't be getting interviews. If it was my interviewing skills, okay, maybe it's my interviewing skills. So after a whole bunch of times, in my book I said it was 6. I'm not sure if it was 6 or if it was 4. I know for my mom, she went 6 times before she got hired. Um, but anyway, eventually I said to my mother, "God, I don't understand why I'm not getting this position. This is just these positions. It's ridiculous." And being sage as she was, and already she was, I don't know if she was an I'm sorry, I'm not sure if she was an assistant superintendent yet or not. But anyway, she said to me, "Go to the superintendent and ask him." Okay. So I made an appointment to be with the superintendent. It was after field hockey, and had been raining. So of course I show up there. Went back into my clothes. I'm freezing and I'm shaking. He probably thinks I'm some sort of lunatic. And I said to him, I was like, "Dr. So and so, I'm here because over the past 2 years, I've applied for positions in this school, in this district, for leadership, for administration. I have my doctorate. This is definitely something I want to do. Um, I'm coming for advice. Why do you think I'm not getting hired?" Because people I knew were getting hired. People who were not as qualified as I was were getting hired, but not me. So he said to me, "Do you see how you are communicating right now and coming across?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And he said, "Well, I want you to do more of that." Okay. He said, "Are you following me?" He was like talking in, it might as well have been hieroglyphics, reading hieroglyphics, because I didn't understand. I was like, "Sure, sure, sure." So I quickly realized it wasn't going to happen for me there. I couldn't figure out why, right? And I think a lot of people think that, or you grab onto the wrong reason for it. Like, I didn't get enough experience in my internship. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Well, the truth is, if you ask people why you didn't get the position, they're not always going to be honest with you because number one, they might be afraid of hurting your feelings, or number two, they might be afraid that you're going to sue them. So, what I sometimes do after I've interviewed somebody that I think could benefit, I might call them and say, "Hey, listen, I wanted to share with you that I think you have a lot to share, or a lot of strengths, but your interview was very weak, and here's how you can fix it." Sometimes people want to hear it, sometimes they don't. But if they ask, I'm usually pretty honest. So I applied outside of my district. I saw an assistant principal position opening in Bergen County, New Jersey, and I had missed the deadline. I was like, "Shit, I can't," oops, excuse me. I was like, "Shoot, I can't apply for a missed deadline." Well, at the same time, one of my students, his father was superintendent also in Bergen County, New Jersey, and their church was having something where this notebook is bothering me. their church was having something where students at the church could invite people who were important in their life. And his son, David, he invited me. And after the service, there was cookies and punch, and I talked to this doctor so-and-so. I can't remember his name, but anyway, I'll remember after this. Not that it matters, but he said, how are you doing with your search? And I said, I haven't found a position in Clarkstown, obviously. I also applied for another position in a neighboring district, which I didn't get. It was a high school assistant principal. And I said, I did see this position in Franklin Lakes, and I'm really interested in it for many different reasons. It was 11 months, it was sounded kind of cool. I said, but I missed the deadline. And he said, oh, apply tomorrow. He said, I'm going to call the guy, the superintendent's name is Roger. I know Roger very well. I'm going to call him and tell him to look out for your resume. You would be amazing in that position. I was like, okay. I applied, I interviewed, got it. So the first job outside of the district where I worked, I nailed it, right? So that made me think, like, what was it that my own district that knew me from as I started teaching onward wouldn't give me a chance? And then I thought about it and I said, you know why? Well, it could be one of two things, but I mean, I was hypothesizing. One could be when you're a good teacher in a district, they might not want to push you into leadership because they lose you as a good teacher. Now, that's counterintuitive, right? Because leadership, you need to be an instructional leader. You should be, as a principal, you should be the best teacher in your building. So you can guide teachers to that level of excellence. And then the second thing I thought was, you know what? I started as a 20-year-old teacher there. I cried. Once I cried in my principal's office. Another time I made a bad choice speaking to a parent. Like, they see all that, right? They see all of your warts. It's like warts and all. And I thought, you know what? There is something about starting anew in a different place. And every time I did, it was just totally refreshing. So then I was an assistant principal under a principal who was wonderful. His name was Rich. And he decided to, after 2 years, he got his dream job as a high school principal. So great for him. He should definitely go and do it. But he got hired late. So they didn't feel like they could find a replacement, a quality replacement. So I said, well, appoint me as the interim. I already have all the relationships with the families. I know all the systems, da, da, da. And they said, we're going to hire an interim. So they hired a retired superintendent who was the husband of one of the principals in the district. And he became my supervisor. And it was a nightmare, by the way, but not to get into that. If you read my book, which if you want it, ask below and I will get you a free copy. By the way, if you're watching live, hashtag live. If you're watching as a replay, hashtag replay. So it was the worst year of my life, by the way, working under this gentleman. Anyway, at the same time, that district was opening a third elementary school. And that's the job I wanted. I wanted to open that school. I was like, yes, I've been in this district. This is my third year. I have responsibilities. I had K-8 responsibilities. So even though I was assistant principal, I was also observing and doing things with elementary. I was like, this is my job. I want this job. It was called Colonial Road School. And I applied and they didn't give it to me. They gave it to somebody else. So I was like, okay, the writing's on the wall here. So I applied for a position in another district. And I went on one interview and I got the job. And I was so relaxed. I can remember, like, when events you just like are tattooed in your brain. I went in, I sat down, I had Tuesdays with Maury, I was reading it, I was wearing a navy blue suit with like a periwinkle shirt. I can remember who was sitting around the table. Jeannie Bergamini and Heidi, I can't think of I keep thinking her maiden name, but anyway. I remember who was even interviewing me, and it was just a great experience. So sometimes not getting the position is a good thing because you wind up in a better situation. So my district where I was a teacher didn't want to give me an admin position, so I became an assistant principal somewhere else. They didn't want to give me a principalship, so I got a principalship somewhere else, and I stayed there until I met my husband 13 years ago and we got married. So, and I would not have left that position. As a matter of fact, the superintendent there said, "Oh, I'm so happy for you, but I'm kind of sad because I really saw you as the heir apparent, and I'm going to be leaving in X number of years, and I thought that you would be the next person." So, my takeaway for you is this: it is going to happen. Leaders are needed. Really good leaders are needed. Effective leaders, passionate leaders, caring leaders, educated leaders are needed. You just have to make sure that you are in the right position. Now, I was really fortunate because I had people in my life who served as mentors or coaches for me. So I had my mother, who was an assistant superintendent. I also had my previous social studies department chair, who I write about in my book, who was there for me. And they were guiding me and, suggesting and asking questions and things like that. And eventually they helped me see that you don't need to stay in the same place. Look elsewhere. Take your talents elsewhere. So if this sounds like you, know that that was me, however many years ago, I guess 20 years ago. And now I'm totally living the dream. I have achieved every goal I set in education, starting my own school from scratch, where I serve as the CEO. So it's not always on our timetable, or it's not always happening where we think it should happen, but it absolutely will happen. If you want to talk more about it, DM me. I'm always open to talking to leaders about how to make their dreams come true, and how I can help. So that's my leadership journey. It took me probably 6 no's before I got a yes, and then 2 no's from that next district before I went outside the district and got that. And then when I moved up here, actually, I applied for an assistant superintendency in a BOCES, and I was one of 3 finalists. And then I said, I did there was like a 3-hour thing. I flew in, and I got home and I said, you know what? I don't even know what it's going to be like up there to drive 45 minutes in the snow. So I removed myself. I said, I don't want to be in consideration for that. It was a great experience, of course, but I wasn't feeling it. So the point is, wait for the right position. Don't worry about the next position, and it will happen for you. It happened for me. It happened for everybody I know who wanted to be an assistant principal or a principal or a leader. It does happen. What you have to figure out, though, is why it's not happening, right? So sometimes you need somebody to help you with that: a colleague, a trusted friend, a coach, a mentor. Share those experiences, share your takeaways from those interviews. But it will happen. Have faith. We need people like you who have the fire in the belly for this work and will commit to the children and their families till the end of time. So enjoy your Tuesday. I'm so glad I had a second chance to record this because I posted it on some other page. Crazy town. But anyway, #live if you're watching it live. Desmond and Aaron are in here, my 2 buddies. And I hope more of you see it. And if you do, #replay. Have a great night.